I was born in northern Nigeria, in a town where the sound of the call to prayer echoed through the streets before sunrise, and where my family name, Elbubah, carried weight in the Islamic community. My father was a respected imam, and from a young age I was immersed in the teachings of the Qur'an. I learned to recite long passages from memory before I could even fully understand them. I was the pride of my family, destined, they believed, to become a great Islamic scholar like my father and grandfather before me. But something stirred deep in my soul, even as a child. I had questions, quiet ones. Questions I dared not ask out loud. Does God truly know me? Is he close or only watching from afar? Can I ever be sure of his love? These questions lingered in my heart like whispers, growing louder over time. Yet I buried them, fearing they would dishonor my family and my faith. A whisper of something more. Everything changed the year I turned 19. I was studying in Kano when I met a classmate named Emmanuel. He was gentle, respectful, and confident in his faith, but not in an arrogant way. I was taught to avoid Christians, yet I found myself drawn to his peace, to his certainty. One day, curiosity overtook caution. "Why do you pray to Jesus?" I asked him. He smiled. "Because he listens, he loves me. He gave his life so I could live. He's not far away, he's near." That sentence stayed with me for weeks. I had memorized the attributes of Allah all my life, but nearness was not one I had known. A God who would draw near to me? That was new. Emmanuel gave me a New Testament. I hesitated for days before opening it. Then late one night, with the door locked and lights dim, I began reading the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. I felt like I was reading forbidden treasure. But it was when I read John 1:14, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, that my heart broke. I wept. Something in me recognized the truth. God had not remained distant. He came to us. Persecution begins. My journey from Islam to Christianity wasn't smooth. In fact, it was more painful than I could have imagined. When my family found the New Testament under my mattress, my father called an emergency meeting of the elders. I was given a choice: renounce this deception or be cast out. I chose Christ. In the days that followed, I was beaten by members of my own extended family. My belongings were thrown into the street. I became an outcast overnight. My name was now a source of shame. The hardest moment came when my own mother, with tears in her eyes, said, "You are no longer my son." I was rejected, ridiculed, and disowned. But still, I could not let go of the peace I had found in Jesus. Even in my pain, I felt held. I remembered his words. "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Matthew 5:10, detained but not defeated. Some in the community went further than rejection. I was falsely accused of blasphemy and arrested. I spent nearly 6 months in a crowded prison cell, poorly ventilated, full of disease, and covered in darkness. There I experienced moments of hopelessness I cannot fully describe. But prison was also where Jesus became most real to me. I had no Bible, but verses I had memorized kept rising in my spirit. "I will never leave you nor forsake you. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" Sometimes in the still of the night, I sang hymns softly to myself, barely above a whisper. Other inmates mocked me, some watched curiously. A few even asked questions. One evening I shared the story of the cross with a fellow prisoner named Musa. A week later, he gave his life to Christ. In the deepest valley of my life, God was still moving. Freedom and a new calling. Eventually, a group of human rights advocates took interest in my case. They petitioned for my release, and by God's grace, I was freed. But I wasn't the same man who had walked in. I came out broken, yet full of purpose. My scars were visible, but so was my faith. I knew now that the gospel wasn't just true, it was worth everything. Today, I live in a different part of Nigeria under a new name for safety, but my mission hasn't changed: to share the love and truth of Jesus with anyone willing to listen. Carefully, respectfully, and always with grace. I help other former Muslims who are walking the same road, those hiding, those hurting, those holding on to hope. I tell them what I now know without a doubt: Jesus saves. Jesus sees, Jesus stays. I lost my family, my comfort, even my freedom. But in Christ I found a new family, a peace that cannot be taken, and a hope that cannot be shaken. If you're searching for truth, wondering if you're seen or loved, I invite you to ask the same question I once asked: